Panday, who has graciously agreed to come join us this morning to talk not only about the inquiry into the 1990 coup, but also to take a look at the performance of the People's Partnership, some of the criticisms that have been leveled against the partnership. We've been talking about the housing issue. We've been talking about the Rashmi Ramnarayan scandal, which it seems will not go away, not if Dr. Keith Rowley has anything to say about it. But also, one thing that has confronted the Minister of Labour and has bedeviled any administration that inherited the LID, DUDE, URP, whatever incarnation of this social program. And one of the very interesting statements made by Winston Gypsy Peters is, listen, we all have to accept and appreciate that this is a tool to show our supporters that we are appreciative of the work that they've done for us during the campaign, and we have to be able to. So this is political largesse, essentially. And many people felt that, well, you know, I thought that you were representing change. But at the same time, that kind of change is not that easy to accomplish. You can't do that overnight.
I can only tell you how we dealt with it because, as you know, I believe, first of all, when Dr. Eric Williams introduced what was originally called the Special Works Program, I think the idea was a good idea. And the idea was a good idea because it meant that there were people who couldn't get a job because they were unskilled. And they were unskilled because they couldn't afford to be skilled because they didn't have a job. You see? So that what the idea was to have a program whereby they will be trained in skills and then leave the program and go out and work in the private sector. That was a good idea. And in fact, it got corrupted. And eventually under the PNM got into the hands of criminals and so on and so forth. When we came into office, what we did was we changed the name, if you recall rightly, to ETP, Education and Training Program. The name itself signified what we had in mind, and that is to say, those who come on the program must be prepared to be trained so that they will leave the program and go to the private sector and provide the labor skills that were needed there. That's how we dealt with it.
But every administration has changed the name, but changing the name had very limited effect. But
to introduce the education element is what they are not doing. So not only did we change the name, we changed the nature of the program by having an education element into it.
But you're talking about a deeply entrenched culture, and you're dealing with people who are coming to the program. You can change the name, but you're dealing with people who are coming to the program with preconceived notions about the program, and they're going to take from it what they expect to get, which is labor for life, or at least a salary for life.
Yeah, well, the function of a government is to help to change the culture for people when that culture has deleterious effects upon the people and the society. So that the answer is when people come into the program, you say you are coming into the program to be trained. But that's a condition. So why can't you enforce that? What is so wrong about that?
But the question really was, the complaint was, and it was building for some time, that, listen, we put the People's Partnership in government, we are not seeing where are our jobs. So there will always be that expectation. It's built in, it's been created by politics, that when the government gets into power, that these jobs will come to our communities.
And if they don't change that, where is the change for which I voted?
But how do you change that then? How do you change something that you basically, that brings you into government? It's a very difficult culture of dependency to break.
It may be difficult, but isn't that why people put you into office? They put you into office so that you will run the things differently. If they wanted it to run the same way, they'd leave the previous government in office. But we say we want change. The people want change. That's why they voted for you. And you have to have the courage to effect change. And by and large, I believe, and I'm sure, I'm convinced that the population is not unreasonable, you know. People are not unreasonable. And if you use the right techniques, you can convince people that we should do the right thing. I don't think you should follow the old pattern and say, the PNM is to do that in order to stay in power, I doing that in order to stay in power too. Then we didn't get change, we got exchange.
What do you think of the Minister, Errol McLeod, having said, listen, there is no way that he is going to adopt a policy of purging the system of PNMites simply because that is what has obtained in the past, and that's not what he's about?
I don't think the issue is purging at all. The issue is returning the program to its original intention. But more important, I found it very, very strange with Mr. McLeod, and I got the impression he was saying, I know that people are corrupt and people are... He said somebody received $45,000 for a fortnight's non-work, ghost gang and so on. So are you saying that because that person may be PNM, you're not going to deal with it? Why isn't the matter reported to the police? That's fraud, isn't it? So that's what I'm talking about. I got the impression that Mr. McLeod was saying that, listen, I am not moving anybody because they are PNM. But what he in effect is saying, although they are corrupt, I'm not moving them because they might be PNM. I didn't think that made sense. So I hope that the new the minister and the ministry will take note of all the allegations made by his senior minister, Mr. McLeod, and will correct them. People are asking for correction in the program. They're not asking you to fire people. Correct it. If someone is corrupt because that person was PNM, you do nothing about it. I don't think that is the way to go.
One of the greatest challenges that has confronted the People's Partnership is the CLICO affair. It's an issue that inflames the passions of the public because there are probably equal numbers, or actually probably the numbers are disparate. There are those out there who feel because of a commitment given by the previous administration, this government has a duty, an obligation to settle with interest their financial responsibility to the CLICO policyholders. There are a great many people out there who do not approve of that, and they do not believe that the taxpayer should suffer for the risky investments of these people. It's a real bugbear for the administration, and I wanted to get your perspective on how it's being managed.
First of all, I really do not know what they are doing, and I don't think anybody does. The first thing is that if a company is bankrupt, has run aground or whatever it is, surely the first thing one ought to know is, what are the assets? What are the total assets? What are the total liability? Can the assets satisfy the liability? In which case, the government doesn't have to do anything. You take the assets and satisfy the liabilities. The second point is that since the government has taken over the company, surely they have been making a lot of profits. All the methanol plants and all that they have taken over. What's happening to that money? Where is it going? So what I think is that the government is not being straight with the people. They are not telling them what the facts are. And before we know what the facts are, how can you deal with the problem? There's a mention, it'll cost us so much and it'll cost us so much and so on. What happens to the assets? Where are the assets? And that's the point I have been making, and that's why I said, how do you want the people to say, no, just take up the taxpayer money and pay? That's not the issue. Where are the assets? Where are the liabilities? How much one is against the other? How much will it really cost? That's the sort of thing. Are the businesses being run properly? We have a politician running this massive conglomerate. That's what I see at the moment. A politician. Mr. Yetming is running a massive conglomerate. Is he capable of doing that? I don't know. But these are things the public ought to know.
Well, Mr. Yetming has a very strong background in finance and banking, but I want to ask one final question. And it was suggested to me by someone who'd seen an interview that I'd done with you previously. Who is Basdeo Panday to come on a television program and offer his opinion or perspective on the performance of the government or the opposition, given his own past in the United National Congress, his legal troubles. Who is Basdeo Panday to come and offer comment on anything in our society?
The fault, dear Brutus, is yours, not mine. If you invite me here. If you didn't invite me here, I wouldn't be here giving my views. So that fault is yours.
I guess I'll look for that. Mr. Panday, thank you very much for being here with us this morning. It's always good to have you on the program.
My pleasure, Paolo. Thank you very much.
We'll take a short break, folks. We'll be right back.